Shall we pray? Lord God, we want to hear you so much each and every day, but help us to hear you even more right now, because we are in this moment. Help us not to have our best hearing, oh yeah, type of when we remember when it's too late. But help us to hear now so we can avoid situations in the days to come. In Christ's name, amen. Well, when you saw those scriptures, those who are familiar or even just heard the words this morning, I didn't hear any teeth grinding. But I know it can be a topic which leaves us a little squeamish. The one in Hebrews, the one which was put up there, which Jonas read last, talked about spurring one another on. Now, we all know Kirk. How would you like him to use his boots on you every time we came to church? That's not what it means. But we hear those words, we see those sharp points, and we go, that's pain. No. Some translations, though, do say stir instead of spur. But it's the idea of mixing things up, challenging one another. But still, we like calm. We like status quo. Then in Matthew, which we had read, and we're talking about dealing with an unrepentant sinner, and if things come to worst, possibly treat them as a pagan or a tax collector. Church circles use the word excommunication. It draws up images of shaming or shunning when someone has committed sin. Then for those, which we didn't read this morning, but we look at passages like in 1 Corinthians where we see an example laid out, which Paul proclaimed what they should be doing. We're just squeamish. Can we avoid this chapter? Where's the love, we ask? Where is the love of Christ? And I think part of this is because we have developed, when it comes to the word church discipline, or that's actually two words, but we have developed a bad taste from things which we have seen in history or in literature. We think of the Spanish Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, and for literature, the Scarlet Letter. No one really wants to live that type of life. But also we may have seen it in our lives. We might think of a time when people have used church discipline as to a way to impose their view on anyone else, to keep the minority quiet and let their will be done. That's not Christ. But it's been done under the name church discipline. It's also been done, and this was done largely by the Pharisees, to keep an order of holiness. What do I mean by that? I am holier than Strider, but Strider is holier than Dan. We have a stepping stone, but everyone should be as holy as Viola. We all know that. Just kidding, Viola. I had to bring you in somehow. Every sermon I've got to bring you in somehow. But it's that whole idea of looking down and using church discipline to say, look, you don't follow the guidelines like I do. Christ never meant that. Also, we have seen church discipline gone awry when love has been taken out of the procedure. And it's all about church protocols and rules. If this happens, then we do this. Then we do this, then this. We forgot the personal pastoral care. And when I say pastoral care, that just doesn't mean me. or Theola and Dan. All of you are ministers. You minister to one another, showing pastoral concern and care. And when that is left out of the equation and we're too busy following protocol, church discipline has gone astray. And sometimes we fall into these false premises of church discipline too, because we don't like or we don't know how to live in the tension of the Bible. How do you have law and grace? How do they work out? For example, if you know someone is sinning, but you're not quite sure how to talk to them about it, well, Dan, I'm going to choose you since I always hit Theola already. Dan's sinning, but I don't know how to address him. Now, if I go to Keith and ask for ideas on how to address the situation, am I gossiping? Or am I seeking counsel to help a brother? We don't like this. We like cut and dry, black and white. And God doesn't always work that way. He leaves us in a biblical tension. Why? So we can seek Him and not just protocol. He wants us to do that. But when we talk about church discipline, if we could, we'd like to rather sweep it underneath the rug. Folks, church discipline is needed because you are called to be disciples. They're from the same words, root word. It means not only to inform and educate, but to help remove anything which will be taking from that. It would be, for all you teachers, if you just went in and taught the ABCs, algebra, geometry, and anything else under the sun, but didn't teach the kids through discipline how to listen. What happens if you don't follow what the teacher says? They may have all the knowledge in the world, but if they don't know how to relate to other people, what's going to happen? You need both. For me, the one video, which I think we all would probably agree, if you're familiar with the skit guys, I'm not sure what you want to call them, but it's basically two guys who started mostly with youth ministry doing skits. And to get God's word across. And one of them is acting like he's just an average Joe just standing there, but the other has got a chisel in his hand, acting as God, chipping away the sins. Now, it can be painful at times. God, do you really need that? You can develop, and it's a great, if we had time, I'd have shown it this morning, but we don't. With God, we may grimace, but we don't really complain. It's God. But when God chooses to use the church as a chisel, we get upset. How dare you? Well, there's a reason why we do. It's because we love you. Jesus died for you. He died for us. And He called us all to live holy as He is holy. And it's a difficult task. A lot of times we think it's easier than it really is. And I'm learning that myself in a new way. I have recently, at least studying a hobby which I'm hoping to get involved with. Unicycling. Yes, I know. I just turned 54 and thinking about getting on a unicycle for the first time. He's not all right in the head. But consider it, on a unicycle. Just even to get on a unicycle, you've got to maintain that center of gravity perfectly over that wheel. If you start to fall forward, you've got to pedal forward to get that wheel back underneath you. And also, if you start falling back, pedal backwards. Meanwhile, also going left, right, and all the way around. So, like weightlifting, I think in many cases, at least beginning with unicycles, you need spotters. To catch you, to see when you're starting to tilt, to catch you. I know whenever I do start that, I might be calling out some of the kids. Watch your pastor, don't fall. But that's what the church is. We are your spotters. We're here to help you so you can get back that center of gravity above Jesus Christ. Your center will. To stay on that path of righteousness. But we like to bob and weave because we don't know how to balance. But the church is there to keep us. Now, when we look at all of this, sometimes we think church is mainly, why are we really doing this? Church is just a building. No, if it's just a church building and church discipline would then simply be, trustees, we need to fix a problem with our building. If the church was merely an institution, well, then we need to work on our programming. If this was just a problem with the way we do our Sunday morning celebrations and we're not doing it right, well, then church discipline would be, well, how do we rework our worship program? It's not about any of those. Church discipline is based upon what church is. It's all about people. We all need to be helped in making things right with ourselves, trying to be holy for God, and realizing we are blind to our own faults. We need help. And the main reason why we do this is found in Matthew 18. Not the part we run to every time a church discipline comes up. We look at beginning with verse 15. If a brother sins, do this, this, and this. But if you go back to verse 12 through 14, it tells the reason and how you implement the program. Verses 12 through 14. We've heard it before, but maybe never have associated with the following verses. A shepherd has 100 sheep. One goes astray. He leaves the 99 to go after the one. And then we talk about church discipline. This is what Jesus is saying. He's leaving the 99 to go after that one brother or sister who has got wrapped up in sin or just struggling. Maybe not even in sin, but not being as holy as God has called them to be. And so he says, the shepherd has gone back home. But he's left the hirelings, us, to go after the lost. Now, when a sheep strays, it doesn't just go off to the edge of the field. It goes wherever it wants and gets entangled in briars and bushes, comes back scarred and all of that. And they keep going farther and farther so that the hirelings will have to go and help untangle, remove any thorns. And how pleasant is it when you say, do get a thorn? When your friend, your mate, your parents have to get that needle to pry it out. It's not comfortable, but it's for your benefit. That's what the church is. We're here not because we want to inflict pain upon you. Oh, you bad people. We'll give you more pain. No, no, no. We're trying to relieve the pain. Trying to help you. It's all about caring. Because what this is all about, church discipline, it's a rescue mission of love. You need to be back with the shepherd. And we're here to help. That doesn't mean we have it all right ourselves, because while we're watching you, you're watching us. It's a mutual thing. But we are fearful of it. Why? Because we skip down, after reading about that sheep, even skip the first few verses following, and skip right down to the last. But if he doesn't repent, treat him like a pagan or a tax collector. Remove him, as Paul would say. in 1 Corinthians. That's harsh. That's the final and last resource the church has. And I will talk to it briefly at the end. But God has given us a far better one. And those verses right after the lost sheep. If we follow thoroughly through those first verses, we don't have to worry about treating each other as tax collectors and pagans. What am I talking about? Let me read it real quickly here. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. Church discipline is a one-on-one thing. And we're not keeping tabs on each other. I have been in a church where it seemed like the whole purpose was in the pursuit of holiness. I'm keeping my eye on you. And if you do anything wrong, I'm going to bring you up before the church. A witch hunt. I was getting ready to say, I turned out normal, but we'll rephrase that subject. But that's not the purpose of church discipline. It's accountability is the word which we use. And it starts not when things are rough, but when things are good. We go to each other, first and foremost of all, and build these relationships of love. We get to know each other. You're not just a person who sits in row 3, seat 4. No, you are an individual. We get to know your name. We get to spend time with you. We talk. We find out your likes, your dislikes. And then we build that relationship all the more about Jesus. Who He is and what He's doing in our lives. We become open with one another. We want to dialogue. We want to be more like Jesus, and we realize we can't do it on our own. And we realize, as Proverbs tells us, that when we are in the thick of things and we need help, it is better to get discipline from a brother than a kiss from an enemy. Because the enemy will come back and stab you. The friend is only doing this for your betterment. So we develop these friendships. We talk about Jesus, making Him the center and focus of our relationships. And then we allow ourselves to be open to one another. And saying, look, I may be struggling in this area. I'm really lazy. Could you guys maybe, TC, give me a call randomly throughout the week to see if I'm doing something or not? Or am I just sitting in my office sleeping? Now, I'm not expecting phone calls throughout the rest of this week, okay? But if you do, I will answer. Oh, I'm busy. But whatever it is, we're there to help one another, to lift up. But also, though, because we do care about you, we're not going to also wait until we see something, or until you ask us to. We care about you. You may be blinded to a particular sin. How about for a lot of us, maybe anger? We're quick to fly off the handle. Another one may be gossiping. We don't realize we do it. We think we're sharing something in love when it was meant to be kept quiet. There are many different types of sins out there. And they're just itching to grab hold of us. And we might be walking so close that we are simply asking, because we're part of this family, we're saying, I'm available to be talked to. We don't have to hear the invite, but because you said you want to be part of this family. We care about you. And so, I want to talk about Larry now. Simply because I already talked about Dan and Theola. That's why Don and Dick sit in the back. They're the last people up on me. But if Larry sees something in me, and he has free course to get up and talk to me. Now the question is how we do it. Because it's supposed to be done in love. A lot of times it can come across very abrasive. And that's not the way it's supposed to be done. And since it's all about relationships, I again have copies of my sermon back there because I'm not going to get into all of these details. But just some notes of thought. Just work, before you start disciplining, start relationships school 101. For every 10 things you see that they're doing good, let them know. Because if all we're doing is taking withdrawals of saying, you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong, and this wrong, and never said, you are excelling in your prayers, you are being a good father or a good mother. I've seen you grow in how you've handled your anger. Praise Jesus. Keep it up. I'm praying for you. The more often we compliment and encourage each other, when we do have to come and take those times of withdrawal, of brother, sister, we need to talk. It won't hurt as bad because it's already cushioned because they know we love them and think the world of them. Second, is checking ourselves. How are we going into this time of confrontation? Because none of us really like confrontation. But first of all, if I'm going to, this time, I'll go after Rodney. If Rodney is innocent, but yet I'm sinning just as much, and I know it, what right do I have to confront my brother? So I need to confess myself of my sins. Now that doesn't mean I have to be sinless. That will never happen. But at least realizing I am a sinner. So that will also, not only am I forgiven with Christ, but give me an understanding, maybe, what Rodney is dealing with. That we will work through this together because we are both forgiven. I am not holy and he is not. It's both sinners who need the grace of God. I check my heart, also not only my life, but my heart, to see that I am going to Rodney in the aspect of love. And not being concerned about protocol or anything of that, or nursing a grudge against him. Oh, I remember when he did this, now I'm going to get him. No. Checking my emotions because I may be so concerned that I love him, but I'm not keeping those emotions intact. That I can switch that love to anger when he isn't listening to me. I've got to keep my emotions in love and concern. I've also got to check my words because making sure that what I speak is the truth and in love and not just off the cuff. If I have to write something down about what I'm going to say, do it. Also, checking what is my goal. If my goal isn't the repentance and restoration and reconciliation of a friend, then don't do it. Until that is your goal, you're going with the wrong motives and the wrong purpose of restoring a brother. But then when you do go, don't start off, okay, you've been gossiping again. What did I tell you? You're going before the church now. No. more like Kay. How are you doing? I just noticed something last week, and it's got me concerned. Maybe you can help explain the situation. I saw you talking to so-and-so about such and such. Did that really take place? Basically what I'm doing is raising questions instead of accusations. There may be things about the event which I think I saw didn't really take place. So there's really no accusation. And with me coming in with questions, Kay, in this particular case, is not feeling that she is being accused. She is more free to talk to me about the situation. And being disarmed so that we can further on together walking this process of church discipline. And it may be nothing, and I got the whole thing wrong. Then I need the one who needs to apologize. And it ends there. But not only do we need to raise these questions, but sometimes realize we just need to cover over the sin. Not cover up, but cover over. Some days we will see sin and just need to keep quiet until another time. This does not mean, again, that we cover it up, for sin is always to be taken seriously. Rather, we cover over it to protect and love that person. Because if we call out every sin that we see, we will create a culture of anxiety as people break beneath the burden of our scrutiny. And when we go, it's in an honesty, it's paramount, but it must be spoken in love. And we must be humble and gentle. And treat that person like we would like to be treated. Imagine you accusing yourself. Listen to the words you would say. How would you respond? Then change your words if it feels like an accusation. We're seeking the betterment of each other. We want to learn. We want to uplift, not put each other down. And hopefully, through this process of being there, opening one another up, we can grow more like Christ. Now, you might have said, what did I sign up for then when I became a church member? I don't like the sound of this. This is very uncomfortable. Good. You didn't join a social club. You joined the church. The church is not here just to entertain you. The church is here to help you be more like the one who saved you. It's going to be rough. But we do it in love. We're not here to put you down, not to rule over you. We want to see the best for you. And this is just the first step. I have, like I said, the sermon notes back there, and it spends a little more on the second and third steps about inviting people into the conversation. If the one feels like there's nothing wrong, again, you do it in a soft, sweet way, trying to find evidence and all that. And then you possibly, only possibly bring it before the church, because let's say, for an example, Kara brings home some ice cream, which she has got planned for herself. Nothing wrong with that. TC opens the freezer, sees it, eats all of it, shares it. Nothing with Kara. He does this night after night after night. Gluttony, theft, possibly even lying to his wife. Is this reason for excommunication? To be brought before the church? No. Unless it was no. What's your favorite ice cream? No. But those sins which really are only significant, have an outward appearance in our lives. I mean, we can't control what's going in our mind. Yes, Keith, I'm going to bring you before the church because of those evil thoughts in your mind. He's never said anything. But I know your thoughts. No. And also, not only significant, not only outward, but also unrepentant. If they repent, it's done. But what does it mean, though, if we do excommunicate? It doesn't mean that person has lost their salvation. All it simply means is We are no longer seeing the evidence which we recognize when they ask to join our church, that they are our follower. The fruit of the Spirit can no longer be seen. How do we treat them? We treat them just as we don't wash our hands. Let's put it this way. We don't wash our hands of them. We may not call them brother or sister anymore, but we still love them. They're still invited to church, participate. But maybe not in more intimate details, because they're not allowing us to participate in the intimate of their lives. We are giving them what they ask for. You're always here to worship. But we now no longer see you as a brother or sister who is doing well, but someone whose soul we're concerned about. Someone who needs to find Jesus, possibly again, or be restored. Again, it's a rescue mission. It's not to get rid of you, but to help you see, if you continue down this path, as Hebrews and Matthew says, the day of judgment. I do not see this as a day of judgment where you go to hell, but more as a fiery furnace where our works are shown. They think they're going to be bringing so much before God, and they're going to be barely getting into the gates of heaven. I want that full way in the heaven. So it is my desire, through that, like I said, last possible resort, to do that. I prefer not to. But if it needs be, it need be. But if we are the church and are practicing that first step of being open and honest and just taking the bumps and bruises of being human in a Christ-centered world, we will come out far brighter, far shinier, better aroma unto God, because we allowed our brothers and sisters to help refine us. No, it's not fun. But like I say about roses, yes, they have their beauty. They smell great, but they do have their thorns. The church discipline might be considered our thorn. But it's done for the furtherance, the protection of the beauty, which is you, the church. We only want the best for you. And we just ask you to be yourself. Look to each other, to your left, your right, front, and back,